Hey, what's up, everyone? This is David Greenspan, and you are listening to the MindShare PodCast, a proud member of the Industry Syndicate Media Network. Additional podcasts are available at industrysyndicate.com and mindshare101.com. This week's episode is sponsored by Kit's Keep in Touch Systems. This is episode 53. He's been in the sales business for 28 years. Starting as a telemarketer, although many found the role to be difficult, he figured out how to excel at it and has now become a leading expert on telephone prospecting, having invested over 10,000 hours over the past 30 years talking to prospects on the phone to date. Since starting out, he has spent much of his 28 years of sales in real estate. And in 2002, his first year in business, he sold 42 homes through phone prospecting. Then, in 2006, he founded Hill Team Associates, a sales division under Keller Williams, where he currently serves as CEO. This led him to realize his passion for helping salespeople improve their skills, and he is now, or was, a member of Gary Keller's private mastermind, which was comprised of only 100 agents who mastermind with each other 4 times a year. He is also only one of 100 certified national instructors who are paid to teach at the national level for their network of almost 170,000 agents at KW. He is the author of a title called The Sales Playbook, and he is the host of the Path to Mastery podcast. Plus, he's got a very awesome first name. It is my pleasure to have David Hill join me on the MindShare podcast today. David, thank you for being here, my man.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it. You always have the coolest hat, so I figured I'd throw a hat on today, So got this Red Sox. It's signed by I don't even remember who signed it anymore, but it's signed by like 3 or 4 players. So
that's cool.
Cool.
Man.
Well, thanks for having me. A few things I do want to clear up though is it's not 30,000 hours, it's 30 years with 10,000 hours at prospecting. 30,000. I mean, even 10,000 is a lot. 30,000 is tremendous. And I am no longer in the Gary Keller Mastermind, just for people that are listening. I was in the Mastermind from 2011 to 2015, and then I started focusing more on speaking and teaching and did not continue in the Mastermind, which is primarily for real estate teams and owners of real estate teams. And Keller Williams is 167,000 agents, close to 170,000 now.
Wow.
So anyway, I just want to, in case people are listening, those are the real numbers. So
hey, listen, man, with your tie to that company and for all the good things you're doing out there, it's certainly a good thing to be able to clarify that. And I got to say, with that hat you just had on with the autographs, it's funny. I've got one at home. It's a Toronto Blue Jays hat. And it's like an old school hat, right? Like way back in the day. I got that thing signed when I was a little kid. And it's funny because I got the same thing. I'm like, I don't even remember who signed half these days, right? And then fast forward. I mean, I don't know if my wife's listening and watching right now, but she found a box of my stuff in the basement, and she made me go through it the other day. And she's looking through. She's like, "Can we throw this out?" And I look at it, I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Do you see all those autographs?" And there's like, I don't know if you guys remember Roberto Alomar and like the Kelly Grubers and those guys from back in the day. I mean, again, Blue Jays, right? So I had all this stuff there. And I'm like, you can't throw this stuff out. I got to give that to my little man. She's like, he doesn't even know who it is. I'm like, doesn't matter. That's the nostalgia of this stuff, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
That's it, man. Are you a big Red Sox fan?
Yeah, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the Red Sox. I'm lucky. I live in New England, so we've been spoiled the last decade. I mean, we've taken all the titles.
I walked right into that. Listen, let's stop right there, okay? I didn't want to know anymore, okay? I do want to remind you, though, that we got a team called the Toronto Raptors, right?
The Toronto Raptors. Yeah, man. Hey, listen, the Pats this year are looking a little suspect, though. I hate to say that, but I don't know. We'll see how far we can go this year. But we've been spoiled.
Yeah, no. You guys are definitely fortunate over there. We're cursed, especially when it comes to my hockey stuff over here. We're definitely cursed with my Maple Leafs, but I don't want to go down that road because I'll just start getting depressed today. So tell me this though, when you talk about telemarketing, right? And really today, I guess based on sort of the name of your podcast, The Path to Mastery. I figured a good title for today's show would be The Path to Sales Mastery. And sure. Reading your bio and learning what I've tried to learn about you and sort of your background. Because I mean, we met back in San Fran, what feels like, yesterday, almost a month ago now.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, we had met when we were doing that expert panel on podcasting itself.
That was fun.
That was cool, right? Like,
yeah,
that was a good setup. And I know I've spoken with some people after the fact, even as a follow-up. And, you know, people were just real grateful about the time that we were spending. But I think that concept, right? Like, even speaking with NAR after the fact, and they were like, you know, what did you think about these expert panels? And I said, look, you know, we walked into these things, didn't know anything that was going on, right? Like, there was a bunch of people standing there. There's 2 microphones on like stands, and it's like, okay, let's just start talking to people. But I thought it was a great setup for what they did there, because it allowed for the Q&A. And I think that that's the big deal here. Like, you know, the MindShare podcast itself, as my listeners are aware of, is all about helping people get out there and build more mindshare. You know, top of mind, intuitive, instinctive reaction to a product or service. That's really the concept around mindshare. And the thing there is, when we think about sales, you know, as salespeople, we all want to get up every single day and, bottom line, sell more stuff. Whatever we're selling, be it real estate, be it marketing, be it books or whatever. We want to sell more. That being said, it's not as simple as that. And this is where, and I wanted to circle right back on this, you know, and go with your telemarketing. I mean, I know that's an old school from like way back in the day, but at the same time,
we even call it telemarketing anymore, do we? I don't know.
I don't know, man, but I know
terminology for that.
Yeah, like, but here, I'm going to say what it is. Yeah. It's called cold calling. It's called prospecting.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I haven't heard it called telemarketing in a lot of years, but yeah, when I started 30 years ago, I think I applied to a job for a telemarketer.
Right.
I mean, it's evolved, obviously, and nowadays you can't only just be calling people anymore. I mean, it works to a small percentage, it does, but there's a lot more to it now. It's a combination 100%. Of multiple things. Yeah. Yeah,
no, totally. And I that's where I want to go with this thing, because I thought that was a cool jumping off point. And again, not to isolate any of this to the so-called telemarketing, more around the idea of when you look at, again, building mindshare, and you just said it, you can't just do that.
Yeah.
So when it comes to that whole phone call thing, you seem to be big on the fact that you got to be making phone calls. And I agree with you 1,000,000%. I think that's, you know, there it is right there, right? When you pick up the phone, I mean, I know for myself, I'll make my calls and I'll call people that I've never met before. And I just want to introduce myself. So I'll let people know, hey, my name is so-and-so. You don't know me. And I don't know you. I'm not looking to steal a ton of your time today. I just want to know if I could send you an email, introduce myself, and maybe follow up with you next week.
Yeah.
And people are usually pretty open to that. They're like, yeah, okay, fine. Send me an email, right? Because you walked into it preparing yourself and preparing them that you're not looking to sell them something today.
Exactly.
So when it comes to the calls, because you're so big on that stuff, what's the thing around that? What kind of process do you yourself go through? And I know you teach on stuff. What are you teaching people about this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's all about making a connection, you know, as fast as possible. I think you said it, where people right now these days we're getting so many phone calls. It's almost becoming ridiculous to an extent, where we have computers calling us, robocalls, knuckleheads calling. So how do you, for you know, within that first 2 seconds or 3 seconds of somebody answering the phone, create enough of a value, or at least intrigue that they're even interested in hearing anymore? Because now when I answer the phone and I know it's a robot, or it's automatically just hang up, right?
Yeah.
So I think most people know that, and they're trying to determine, is this a real person calling me? Is it a robot? And the interesting thing now is they're calling from local phone numbers. So it looks like, you know, somebody's calling from my neighborhood or something. So I think the first thing is making that connection. And like you said, it's letting people know, hey, I don't want to waste your time. This will take, 10 seconds. Here's what I'm looking to do. I'm authentic. And I think that's just a great starting place, for making these types of calls. And honestly, ironically, yesterday, this salesperson called me, and I love salespeople. Like I'm a true salesperson, right? Yeah. I love salespeople, good salespeople. And so if somebody's good, I'm going to listen to them. And sometimes I'll be sold, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to, but I will. I'll let them sell me because I love salespeople. But this guy called me, and he just was not listening to me. He calls me, catches me when I'm walking into an appointment. So I hear him out for 30 seconds because he sounded good. Said, listen, send me an email and I'll take a look at it, and I don't have time right now. And his response was, well, what better time is there than now?
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, like I'm walking, like, dude, I don't have, like, now's not the time. And then again, he repeated it to me, like, well, when is the time? Like, if now's not the time, what is your product, blah, blah, blah. I just hung up on the guy because he's not listening to me.
Yeah.
Right, Dave? So if somebody says, hey, now's not a good time, then what is a better time to get back to you? It's literally that simple. And it just shows you're listening to people. So I will say, okay, I get it. Now it's not a great time. And I start all my calls with something that I got from Chris Voss. Chris Voss wrote the book. Oh gosh, what's the name of Chris Voss's book?
I know the name though. I know.
Yeah,
for some reason I heard this guy's name.
He was the FBI hostage negotiator.
Okay,
never split the difference.
Right.
Yeah, he was on my podcast twice, and he gave me a strategy years ago. And he starts all his calls with, "Did I catch you at a bad time?" It's completely different than what everybody else does, because when I say, Dave, did I catch you at a bad time? What are you going to say?
I might say no, or I might say, yeah, who knows? I guess it's one or the other.
So if you say no, what I did was I just gave you control of the conversation. So all of a sudden now you don't feel like you're being sold because you're in control. Right? So it's such a simple strategy, but I start all my calls with that. And if they say yes, I'm still giving you, okay, perfect. What's a better time to get back to you? And what ends up happening is 50% of the time, and try it if you don't believe me, 50% they'll be like, well, what do you want? You're on the phone now anyway.
I was about to say that, right? They probably just go down that road. Okay, what's up?
And it's such a simple strategy, but unfortunately now everybody's going to hear that and start doing it, so it's not going to be as effective. But it's such a great way, because again, now I'm respecting you. I'm telling you your time's important, and I'm giving you control of your time now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So you're doing a bunch of calls on a regular. Like, is this still part of your daily routine or weekly routine that you're doing these calls?
It is. I make calls, yeah, and I'm a national recruiter. One thing I can tell you though is I do make some cold calls still, but the majority of my calls are usually typically followed up by either we're running like a targeted Facebook campaign on a specific group of real estate agents, and then they'll get typically an email, and we'll also send a text, and then the call will come after. So they've kind of seen us a few times show up on MindShare. Exactly. Yep. So that when we're calling, it's not as cold of a call. And then we also send out a pretty basic text that basically just says, hey, we're just curious. Would you be open-minded to having a conversation around X? And if we send out 250 of them, 20 people may say, no, I'm not interested. 10 may say, take me off your list. And 10 may say, yeah, sure, I'm interested. Give me a call. So those are actually warmer calls, believe it or not, just from sending out a text. But even the ones that say, like, you guys are too expensive, or anything weird, anything except take me off your list, I'm going to call anyway, just to get a little bit more detail on that. So that's why I was saying earlier, it's not just the cold calling. I mean, we still do call some people, but typically there has to be a reason for the call.
But that's the whole, and that's where a lot of people trip up, is they go, well, I don't know what to say. And it's funny because I'll joke about it and I'll say, okay, I've got a line for you. And I'll tell, I do this with the audiences, and it's funny to watch the reactions, because you're like, okay, write this down. We start, getting ready to write it down. I go, hi. And people are like, what? I'm like, no, seriously, think about it. And look, I like the approach that you come with, the way you say that to people. Did I get you a bad time? Did I get you a bad time?
Everybody else says, did I get you a good time? Well, no, you didn't, because I'm friggin' in the middle of
I'm busy or something, right?
And you're interrupting me, right?
But it's that thing of like, you got to get over the fear of picking up the phone, because that's a big part of, again, the connection point. Sure. That's what brings your Facebook post, your text message, your email. That's what brings it to life. You all of a sudden have become a real person. And there's the difference is especially in today's world. And dude, you've been in sales for a long time, right? I've been in it a long time. People do not want to do the cold call. They do not want to do the door knock. Sure. But they will very, very quickly go and spend a ton of money advertising online, because they don't have to do anything. They just got to spend money.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's a reactive response, right? You're hoping people will request information, or it's more reactive than proactive. Right?
Yeah.
Proactive.
And that being said, though, it's that whole idea of like, you're hoping people are going to request information, or you're hoping people are going to click on your ad. You're hoping. You're not doing anything but hoping.
So with us, regardless of, like, I'm going to call anyway. So if I take a list of 200, we do it in groups of 250. I send out, I run some ads, Facebook ads targeted. We'll get a text out, possibly an email. People aren't really paying attention to email as much anymore, but it's still MindShare though. If you see the email, you may delete it, but you still saw the name.
Yep.
And then I'm following up with a phone call regardless.
Right.
The ones that had said sure, then obviously that's a warmer call than somebody that didn't say anything, but we're still going to give them a call.
Absolutely.
Just to make a connection.
And then I imagine that you guys do some sort of follow-up process on that, where it's not necessarily just one ad or one call or one email, but there's going to be a chain of events that takes place to start to warm up that audience.
Sure. Yeah, we're going to save the audience, and then the audience will be rotated. And, 3 months down the road, that audience is going to come up again. And if I have a conversation with somebody, because the majority of the business comes from follow-up anyway, I'm sure you know that.
Yeah.
Depending on the conversation, there may be an action plan or a strategy of some emails and a couple, texts, and then a follow-up plan. So, I may talk to an agent that says, you know what, right now I don't want to deal with anything, but call me after the new year, and we'll sit down, we'll have a coffee. Perfect. So I'll set a follow-up call. I'll send them an email with some information, and that's it. And they'll get a call, something scheduled into the calendar. So this is not complicated stuff, man.
No, but that's why I wanted to say, I mean, when I was reading the bio and I'm looking at telemarketing, and again, I know I keep using that term, but that takes us all the way back to the old school. And one thing that I think people need to understand today in this world, where we stand right now, is that in order to be successful in this business, we cannot get caught up in what the technology allows us to do. Instead, be able to embrace the technology. But everybody's got to truly remember where all this stuff comes from, right?
Yeah.
And it really, truly does come from that old school sales mentality. I mean, that's something that hasn't changed in years, is that people are able to get out there and they are able to connect, make a phone call, touch, see people. Again, the door knock. How many people don't like to do the door knock? Yet every time I speak to realtors, 96% of realtors don't door knock. 4% that do, 99% of them see business.
Yeah.
But people don't want to get out there and do the work. They don't want to go and put the effort into it.
Yeah. Door knocking's important.
Oh man, it's absolutely integral. I mean, again, it is bringing who you are to life. So for example, you're going to flyer a neighborhood, you're going to get out there and you're going to go and introduce yourself. Much the same. You just sent out an email. You've got to make a phone call or do something else to be able to, again, bring that together. So on that day.
So let me, share. So one thing that I would share with your audience that helps, and this is still, I'd show you my board's right here on the side wall, and it says right up on the top in big letters, it says, "I am here to help." Actually, I can probably, if I can finagle this a little bit, I can show it to you. Yeah, you see it right there on the wall?
Yep.
Right on the top, it says, "I am here to help." And for me, that's the mindset, right? Because I may call someone and they want nothing to do with what I'm talking about, or they're having a bad morning, or they're just completely closed-minded. Well, that's not really my issue. That's theirs, right? I'm here to help. And if I can keep that, and that's for everybody listening, when you're making these calls, you have to figure out a way that you're coming from a place of, hey, this is contribution. I'm looking to help people. I can't help everybody. Some people don't want my help, and that's fine. I'm looking for the person I can help. And that makes these calls so much easier. And then another question, if you go back, it says, what problem am I trying to solve?
Right.
So a lot of the agents that I'm calling, we already know their production. We can see their production before we call. Some are up, but the majority of them are down. We can see what they made last year. We know where they are yet. So some of them are making substantially less money, and we know that. But they are saying, "Oh no, everything's fine, everything's great." So I have to be good enough and be able to ask the right questions so that I can help them solve the problem that they're having right now. And I think people get just stuck into a complacency mindset. When I can come from a place of, "Hey, Dave, listen, I get it. Now's not a good time. Tell me a better time to get back to you. We have 5 minutes." because I'm just here to try to help you. And you don't have to join Keller Williams. I could care less if you join Keller Williams or not. I mean, ultimately, that's our goal long term. We'd love to see you, but I want to bring you some value so that you can take that value and you can use it to get your business back on track or to get your business where you want to go, regardless of where you are, any company. And then what I'm doing is I'm giving you that value. So down the road, if you ever decide, you know what, I need to make a switch, then you're going to remember that I did that for you. Right.
You know, everybody,
and then you're going to call me.
No, and see, I love what you just said there, because that's been a very big underlying tone that we've heard. We in our circles hear that a lot. What kind of value can you provide, right? And it's something that I don't know about you, but I know for myself, it's something that I try to preach out to my clients and everybody that I'm out there working with is, what are you doing to provide value? How are you providing value? What is value? What does that mean? And I mean, we've taken polls during the MindShare Challenge, my training program, where we've asked people, what do you like to do to get business? What do you hate doing, to get business? Where does most of your business come from? And it's interesting because a lot of people they do not like to give away free value. Yet they love networking with people. So I say to people, I go, well, what is it that you're speaking about when you're speaking with people? And I'm talking, you could be having a coffee, you could be at the hockey rink, you could be wherever. What are you speaking to people about? And now it's, what kind of value are you providing to that conversation? And how does somebody take that back and without you selling, without you saying, hey, this is what I do for a living, they're understanding what you do. They could see that you live it and you breathe it because you're not selling anything, but there's this underlying tone of value that continues to be there. And then this is that reciprocity thing where now they look at you and they go, you know what? Actually, Dave, I got a question for you. And now they're circling back with us, right? So in your world, you are you're focused on recruiting, but you've got a real estate.
I still run my business. Yeah,
right.
We still have a real estate business. Yeah.
Okay, and that's what I wanted to ask you. So in that. Where do you guys find the majority of your business comes from? I mean, I like to break it down and say, realtors have two audiences, the people we know and the people we don't know.
Yeah.
Typically speaking, when I talk about the people that we know, I'm even going to include that as referrals. So you may get a referral from your friend Judy, who's in the people you know, to her friend Michael, but you don't know Michael. So some people go, well, that's people I don't know. Well, no, it's not. That's people you do know. Right?
Well, it came from a source that you knew. We call it Mets and not Mets.
Okay. Explain that.
So Mets are people I've met.
Okay.
I know them. I like Judy calls me up and says, hey, I have a referral of John. So I've met Judy. So that comes from my Met, but now she's introducing me to John, and John is somebody I haven't met. But then as soon as I connect with him, it goes into my Met. So we treat those two lists completely different. People that we've met are getting, more stuff. They're getting invitations to stuff. There's just more. And then to not met is just more of like a drip campaign trying to get them engaged in a process. Does that make sense? So it
totally makes sense. And where would you see the majority of business comes from? Is it the
For
Mets?
For us, it's Met. Oh, absolutely Met. I mean, yeah, the people like you said, it's all of my business is coming from that right now because the majority of my time is spent recruiting right now. So friends that like people I know will call me, hey, I've got this nice 2-family. Can you, what do you think it's worth? Or, so right now my wife actually does the primary, amount of our real estate business. And I'm about to hire actually somebody else now too, because people are starting to, call me again. And I want to get somebody actually out there being proactive and generating more business. Right now, I just personally I'm not committing the time to do it.
Right.
So we do want to get our business started again or
going
at a high level. I mean, at one point we were doing over 25 million in volume. So,
wow.
That was, and then I left the business. I stepped out of the business and we moved our family to Connecticut, ran a couple Keller Williams offices and just went through that whole phase of leadership. It was awesome. A lot of growth, humbling at the same time. And then I decided my wife more decided for us that we were going to move back to Massachusetts, and she wanted to be closer to her family and get back to her friends. And so we moved back to Massachusetts about 4 months ago. So
okay.
When I left, we had a pretty big team. I left a few people in charge. Unfortunately, weren't the right people. Year later, the team pretty much fell apart. So we're kind of back now and we're rebuilding the team. And so like the question you asked me, the majority of my business right now comes from people I know because I'm not really prospecting in the real estate business. However, once we get going again, then I think it's going to be 50-50. Where 50% is going to come from prospecting for sale by owners, expired sellers, people like that. And then we're still going to obviously focus on the people we know by getting in touch with them, wishing them happy holidays, inviting them to client events, buyer seminars, all that type of stuff. We're getting that stuff rolling again right now. So I've only been back in Mass for 4 months.
Yeah. So, I mean, okay, with that, then naturally you're going to get, most of your business from people you know at the moment because you haven't been around for a little bit. But at a 50-50 slice, I mean, that means that there's going to be a pretty heavy prospecting push going on in terms of what you're doing from, be it again, phone calls to Facebook ads to emails, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be done.
I mean, right now, the challenge that all real estate agents are facing is inventory. Inventory is the lowest it's probably ever been. So, I have a database of around 1,200 people, it's a decent database. It's not a massive database, but it's a decent sized database. It's good emails, everything. But out of those 1,200 people, at any given time, maybe 20 to 50 are interested in doing something.
Right.
And right now, because of the inventory and because of what's happening, there's just not enough business in that database to sustain a really high real estate business. So I have to look at other sources to generate business. So, I mean, we do other things. We buy realtor.com ads. Right now we're getting realtor.com ads, a few different referral sites, things like that. But yeah, prospecting's always been a big part of my game. As you can imagine, I mean, I've been on the phones my whole life. I built my real estate business on for sale by owners. That's how I started my real estate business.
Got it. It's funny that you said, the challenge right now is inventory, because I was going to ask you, what are you experiencing down there, especially because you speak to a lot of realtors on a regular basis. What are they facing as their biggest challenges? And I might even take that and go outside of inventory, right? Because that's one thing that none of us can control is the market, the industry. We cannot control that, but, we can control what we do every single day. And you can literally, fold it all up and say, well, that's it. Market's bad. I've got no, very little opportunity here. I got to do something else. Or we can sit back and go, what is my plan? What is my ultimate goal? What is my plan to achieve that goal? And what am I going to do every single day, come hell or high water, to ensure that I am, give myself the most opportunity for success? What are you guys seeing down there as the biggest challenges that realtors are facing? And I mean, this could be, again, outside of market, outside of industry. This could be, from marketing or time management, whatever it be. Because, we hear a lot of different things.
I think you nailed them all. And the reality is inventory is a big challenge now because, as I mentioned, even if I have a database of, say, 50 people that are interested in doing something, a lot of them aren't going to do anything because they may need to sell a house to buy another one. And they can't find anything to buy, so they're just staying put. Or you have a buyer that just can't find a property. And every time they find a property, they're up against 10, 15 other offers. They're getting frustrated. So inventory is definitely a challenge that realtors are dealing with. And I think you nailed it earlier. I mean, lead generation, everything comes down to lead generation, Dave. I mean, if people would show up every day and make the calls, business is going to show up. It's a numbers game. That's the reality. And most people don't want to deal with the numbers. So in what I do right now, I probably talk to 20 people before I get somebody that says, yeah, you know what, I'd be interested. So that means I have to deal with 19 people saying no to me. And some of them will say no, like, oh, no, thank you. Yeah, have a good day. Other people like, no, take me off your list. Or no, don't ever call me again, loser. Oh, they don't usually say that. But you get it. It's just different variations of the no. And that's all it is. It's a no. So if you go back to what I have up here, I'm here to help. Hey, okay, I get it. No, now's probably not a good time for you. No problem. Have a phenomenal holiday. We'll check back with you after the new year. And they're like, huh? Like, you know what I mean? Like someone's like, yeah, I have no interest. You don't even call me. All right, great. Have an awesome rest of your day. We'll check back after the new year. Maybe you'll be in a better mood, right? And that's it. And then you just move on, right? And you just have fun. You learn to have fun with it, man. You have to figure it out. And so lead generation is the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
Number one, even ahead of inventory, because if you show up every day and lead generate, you're going to create inventory. So that's why I said earlier, I'm hiring somebody right now that's phenomenal on the phones I'm going to have him start rebuilding our business through prospecting.
Got it. And it's, when we did that panel, that podcasting panel, I don't know if it was after my podcasting panel, the video panel I did there at NAR that time. I was on a guy's podcast the other day, David Finale. And I don't know if you know David. Funny enough, another David. But I had met him at one of those panels. And we were talking about very similar things the other day on that. It is a numbers game, and being being a Toronto boy, being a hockey guy, we will always tell everybody, if you don't shoot, you cannot score. Like last night I said to my team, in our little pep talk prior to the game, and I told these guys, I says, you guys are the best team out there, and our record doesn't show it, but they're amazing, these kids. They're absolutely awesome. And one thing I said to them was,
so you're a coach, right? What are you coaching?
I'm coaching hockey. I'm coaching baseball.
I've got I remember that. Man. We went out to dinner that night. You were sharing that with us.
Yeah. Right. So, I sat there and I said to the guys, I said, look, I'm not looking at the scoreboard tonight. Okay. I don't want to look at the scoreboard and look at the goals. I want to look at the shots. I want to see how many shots you guys can take. I want more shots than the next guy. In fact, the first shift we go out there, I want a shot on net. No matter what, I want the puck to the net. And we've got something that we, in hockey, you call it the house, right? And the house is kind of this area in front of the net. And if you don't put the puck in the house, you have less chance of putting it in the net. Right? Well, once it gets to the house, there's a very high percentage chance that there's going to be a shot. It doesn't mean it's a goal. So now you start looking at, percentages and scoring rates and things of that nature. And this could be phone calls. This could be shots on a hockey net. This could be whatever, but it's prospecting. It's the opportunity to score, right?
Sure.
So the more shots you take on net, the higher percentage you have to score. And it's just a numbers game. So I love what you said there was, make it fun. Get up every single day and just, how can I help people? How can I get out there and take more shots and understand that, you're going to get 19 no's before you get one yes. But if you can walk into that, understanding that and going, you know what? I know I'm about to hear no. And when they say yes to you, it's like, that's good. Because most people, and I said this on Dave's, it was exactly this, is most of us will go, I'm going to pick up that phone and make a phone call right now. And somebody's going to say yes to me. And then they're going to say no. And then they say no. And you're like, shh, damn. And you hang up and you do the next one. They say no. And you're like, oh, man. And then people get down on themselves. They start to get to the point where they're like, you know what? This ain't working. I don't want to do this anymore. They don't realize how close they are to that yes. There's a cool diagram. I don't know. I think I've seen on social media or something.
So I want to just share something, because going off what you just said, this is critical. When I work with people, the first thing we focus on is appointments, and it comes down to what you're saying. So if you're not going, so let's say if you and I are working together and your goal is, I want to list 5 properties this month, then in order to list 5 properties, you're probably going to have to go on 7 to 8 appointments, which is only 2 appointments a week, right? In a month, it's 2 appointments a week. Your conversion rates means if you're at a 70% conversion, which, 3 out of 4, if you know what you're talking about and show up, then you're going to list, right, 7 or 8 properties. So the challenge now is most agents, I'll say, okay, great. How'd you do? Well, I didn't go on any appointments. Well, why didn't you go on any appointments? Well, because I didn't know what to. So I just say, listen, we're not going to even talk about anything else until you told me I went on 2 appointments last week. Because if you're not going on 2 appointments, there's nothing else to talk about. And I think people don't get that, because they're so worried, well, if I go on an appointment, what am I going to say? And I'm going to do this. And don't worry about that. We need to get you on appointments. I'd rather have you go on appointments and missing the appointment. So then we have stuff to work with. But if you're not going on appointment, it's the same thing you said, taking shots. Yep. The more shots they take, they're going to get better at taking shots, right? They're going to start getting closer in the shots. There's more percentages of it going in the net. But if they're not, it's the same thing with appointments. If they're not going on the appointments, they're never going to take listings, right? Now, and I just wanted to.
Yeah, no.
Because
I'm
for
with
me,
you.
it's like you have to be going on your appointments, or what are we even talking about, right? There's nothing to talk about if you're not going on appointments. Go on appointments and fail, then we can talk about what happened and what can we do so that next time that doesn't happen again. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense.
Lead generation, because they're not making enough calls to actually go set the appointments to go on the appointments.
Okay. So to that then, because you do a lot of training, right?
I do. Yeah.
What are you teaching? So I'm a realtor and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I just got in the biz, or I'm kind of in a funk, and I'm like, you know what? I need some help, or I'm looking for advice, or whatever it be. What are you actually, and I mean, I want to say, what are you teaching people? And it's, I mean, maybe there's some of those things that you don't want to share. I don't know. So I sort of say that lightheartedly and go, but what is it that you'd be teaching? And I mean, we're already getting a lot of that from you right now.
Sure. Dude, I share everything.
That process, right? Because that whole path to mastery and that idea around how can I be better at what I do? How can I give myself more opportunity? Right. We've so far talked a lot about, you got to get out there and prospect. You got to put yourself out there. You got to go and do, you know, meetings and listings and all that stuff. Give yourself the opportunity to score.
Yeah.
What is that process that you might take somebody through, kind of in a nutshell almost? What is that process that you take people through that says, okay, here's where I want you to start, and here's where I want you to be at in a certain time frame, or the things I want you to achieve, and then we'll talk again on here. What are you going through with people?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think ultimately what we want to do is we want to figure out what your goals are financially. So, you know, what's your financial goal? What's your life goal? What's your family goal? How many vacations you want to take? So then we can take all that and we can come up with, okay, based on my life, my financial goal, this is what I want to make in income. Then we can look at literally, okay, based on where you sell real estate, your average sale price is whatever. So that means in order to achieve this financial goal, you need to close, say, 25 houses next year.
Right.
So now we know the goal is 25 houses. So now in order to close 25 houses, based on where you currently are now with your conversion rates, you may need to go on 50 appointments, right? So now we have some numbers that we can come up with a plan. So I always start with the goal, like what's their big why? What's important to them? What do they want to make? And then I work up my way backwards. And that's how I come down to appointments. I mean, this is not complicated stuff. And then it comes down to, okay, here's what you're going to say. You're going to make the calls. And if you're not going on appointments, and that's all we're going to focus on, is how do we get it such that you can set up appointments? And another, I mean, I'll even dumb that down a little bit more. Let's say you're just brand new, you're getting into real estate, right? Find a mentor, right? Find someone that's doing what you want to do, and hang out with them for a while. You know, if they have a team, who knows, join their team if you want. That's what I did. Yeah. I joined a team with one of the top agents in the office. I was with him for 6 months. I learned a ton from him, and it was super valuable information. I didn't have to figure stuff out on my own. And then eventually I went and I did my own thing. But I could have, you know, even have lunch with people, find the top agents, have lunch, pick their brain. This is an action sport, Dave. It's not, you can't sit back. So many agents make the mistake. They get licensed and I see it all the time, and they spend all their time learning how to fill out a contract or an agency disclosure form, or they want to know every word, and they're so and they never get anything. They never do any business because they're so, oh my God, well, what if somebody says yes and I have to fill out an offer? Dude, go get someone that wants to write an offer, then come see me. We will get the offer filled out.
That's what I call the bookworm.
I have to do it myself.
The bookworm, right? Like they're always studying, but never actually pulling the trigger. And meanwhile, everybody's out there is hustling, getting things done. And by the time they're sort of at that point, it's like, well, wait a second, what if? And you're like, okay, you know what? What if? Put your what if aside for a second. Go out and do something and go figure out how to deal with it. Dude,
my first 2 listing appointments, I had no frigging clue. I set them with For Sale by Owners. Steve Clements was the team I was on. He came with me. He did all the talking. I just sat there. That was it. I sat there, listened, and that was my first 2 listing appointments. He took 1 out of 2 listings, right? I think I would have probably took 2 out of 2 if I did the talking. But anyway, you know, that's how it was, man. I learned, and I kept me. He said he gave me the script, and look, here's the script, man. You got the freaking script holder right here, right?
Oh man,
isn't that cool? But anyway, so you got the scripts, you make the phone calls, and then that's it. He told me, here's what you say. I'm calling For Sale by Owners. 1 said yes. All right, great. We went, met with him, and he did all the talking. That was my first listing appointment.
But that's where you get your feet wet. You start to learn. You get in there. You start to do monkey see, monkey do, kind of get into the fire no matter what, and then figure out what to do after the fact.
Absolutely, yeah.
So tell me this, what you wrote a book, right? The Sales Playbook?
Yeah, Sales Playbook. Yep.
What does that cover off a lot of the things we've been talking about today, or what's that all about?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in the process now of doing a rewrite with 2.0, social media enhanced. But it's connection, man. It's all about connection. Really, it's like, it's everything we started talking about. You know, when you get somebody on the phone or you're talking to somebody in line at a Starbucks or whatever it is, or you're interacting with somebody on like Facebook, you know, how do you make a connection? How do you bring value? And then there's 5 forms of call reluctance, and we kind of dig deep into the different forms of call reluctance that we're all dealing with.
Of what?
And then
Reluctance?
Just call, like people are fear of rejection is by far the biggest one that most people do. They just don't want to, they're so scared of rejection. And how do you get rid of that is you don't make it about yourself. Yeah. They can't reject me because I'm calling to help them and have fun. So if I'm calling to help you, you can't reject. Plus you don't know me. Yeah. Right. Another one, believe it or not, is fear of success. That's actually not as common, but you know, when you do something and you're really successful at it, then all of a sudden you're expected to do it again. And it can be a lot of work. So you might be like, Jesus Christ, it took me this much to close 20 deals last year. There's no way I want to do that again. Right. So in your mind, you sabotage yourself. There's not knowing what to say, which is a big one. Hangs a cover, you know, it limits a lot of real estate agents and salespeople. They're going to not take action because they don't know what to say. So having good scripts and things like that help, right, with that. Lack of role acceptance is another one. You know, I went to college for 5 years. I got a master's and I'm friggin' cold calling people. What the F, right?
Right. That's what a lot of people think too, though. They're like, oh man, why do I got to stoop down to this level?
Yeah, man, that's another one. You got to figure out how to get past that. And again, a way to come from a place of contribution and just helping people. So yeah, it's such a mental game, Dave. It's really, and those are the things we talk about in the book. And then, beyond just that, that's the first step, figuring out what it is, because we're all dealing with different forms of call reluctance. And then there's strategies on how to deal with each one and kind of work through it. And I deal with it every day. I show up. I do not want to friggin' cold call agents. I'm like these some days, but I do it and I have fun and and I just and that's it. You gotta always that's why I keep that there. Somebody says something to you and it just irks you, but you just gotta smile and realize I'm blessed. Yeah, I'm blessed, and I'm trying to help you, man. If I can help you, great. If I can't, then that's hey, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go find someone else I can help.
Yeah. No, and I like you mentioned about the you stand in line at Starbucks and you start talking to people. I've said this so many times, like just spark up conversation instead of sitting there on your phone, tapping away on something. Figure out how can you spark up a conversation with people. People are like, well, why would I just talk to a stranger? I'm like, you don't understand. The more people you speak to, the more opportunities you create. It's that simple.
My wife is a master at that. She can't help it. My 6-year-old is just like my wife. My 2-year-old's more like me, and I have a 26-year-old that's more like me. But my 6-year-old, she goes into we'll go to the Y, and she runs up to people. Hey, do you want to play? You want to be my friend? You want to that's her energy, man. It's awesome, and it makes me sometimes I'm like, oh, and she's just, and everybody's so receptive. The kids love her. My wife's the same way. She'll be in line, she'll be in a store or something, and she just makes friends with everybody. Me, I'm more I have to purposefully be okay, go talk to people. So that,
right. Yeah.
It's just this mental. It's kind of funny. So I was picking up my daughter at the bus stop the other day, and there were 6 moms. And I took a picture of it and I posted on Facebook, but then I took it down because I didn't know. I didn't know if that was appropriate.
Okay.
None of them knew I took the picture because everybody was on their phone. They're all in this little area under this canopy thing.
And they're all doing this.
They're all there together, lined up like this. Nobody's interacting with each other. And I just kind of got a kick out of it. And that's our society these days, man.
It is, man. It really is. And you know what? It's funny because you said as you do the calls, how much fun you end up having with it, and how reluctant we are to pick up the phone and do it. I got to tell you though, I have those moments where I'm like, oh man, I got to do calls right now. I got to pick up that phone. And it's not the fear, because I got zero, like nothing. I don't care. I'll call anybody. It doesn't matter, right? Worst you're going to hear is no. Big deal. It's more about the time to put into it, and then knowing the admin that goes on while I'm doing it, writing my notes and doing the scheduling and how much time it takes.
It's another big
but there
point.
is something about, and for me personally, I like to be in my car. I like to be walking. I'll have this thing on. I'll have my earbuds in, and I'll start doing my calls. It is awesome. Like, you can have a lot of fun with people and realize how much fun it really is just to call people and say what's up.
Yeah, I talked to a guy yesterday. I was talking to a guy yesterday, and he's a super high producer, sells like 250 houses a year, and he's a really good guy. We had a long conversation. He does keto diet, and he's getting into all the fitness and nutrition, but he gets up at 4 a.m. And I'm like, dude, 4 a.m. Like, what the hell? So, I mean, I get up at 4 a.m. when I'm training for an Ironman or a race or something, but I'm not training now. So, but anyway, he motivated me. Like, I'm like, dude, you're like, so this morning I got up at 4. I haven't got up past, I'm embarrassed to say this, but I've been getting up at like 5:45, 6 o'clock, so I got up at 4:45 this morning because of my conversation with him yesterday. And
what time you go to bed?
I texted him. I went to bed at 10 last night.
Okay.
So so I texted him this morning, just like, dude, thanks, man. You inspired me yesterday. That's cool. That's genuine. I'm just being real. You know what I mean?
Well, look at that, off of a phone call with somebody, right?
Yeah, just somebody.
Crazy, man.
So
you and with your podcast, what's the deal there? What's your focus? Because I mean, when I say, again, the MindShare podcast, the focus is trying to help salespeople kind of get to that place of understanding how to be out there and build mindshare. And I mean, today we focused a lot of time on taking those shots, making those phone calls, and really the back to basics stuff. And again, like we said off the top of today's show, not to take away from taking advantage of technology that's out there, but really mixing the old and the new together. So that's a lot of, again, what this podcast is about. You've got your podcast. What's the deal around that?
Yeah, we're similar, man. It's called Path to Mastery, and it's about helping people get from wherever they are now to wherever they want to go. And my philosophy is that you don't ever become like, I've got 10,000 or more than 10,000 hours now. I'm not a master by any means. Every day I'm learning something new. Every day I'm getting a new strategy or a technique, or talking to you, I'll find some things from this interview that I can use. You're just always looking to grow, right? And that's what I'm really encouraging people. And I do that by bringing on the best, guests, sales trainers. I mean, I've had Tom Ferry on my show, Tom Hopkins, Brian Tracy. I mean, Mel Robbins was a phenomenal episode. Chris Voss, Gary Vee. I know I'm name dropping, but these are the type of people that, I've been able to get on the show to inspire other people. But it's interesting, even with all those big names, some of the interviews that I've gotten, the most, people have thanked me or given the best feedback was just, a real estate agent that's, closing 25 transactions in his, first year. And he tells people, how he was able to do that, and how he was able to start real estate and have success. So, but it doesn't matter wherever you are on this. Like, we have agents at Keller Williams that are closing 1,500 transactions a year. And if you talk to them, they're like not down on themselves, but they're like, dude, I got to get to 2,500. Like, everything's focused on, I got to figure out how to get to 2,500 transactions. We all hit our ceilings, right? My ceiling may be, the best year we had, we closed 112 transactions. Maybe that's my ceiling. I was stuck at 90, 95 transactions for like 10 years. I finally broke through, right? But that's my ceiling. Someone else's ceiling is 250. Someone else's ceiling is 1,200, right? It doesn't really matter. We all can get to the next level. Think of like Elon Musk. I guarantee you, he's thinking about how do I get to the next level, but we're looking at Elon Musk like,
right.
Excuse my language, but I'd like to be like, like Elon Musk, right? Like, have his money and all that, whatever. And he's probably like, man, I got to get my shit together, right? Excuse my language.
It's fun. No, man. It's
it's like,
funny. I'm in the midst of reading a book right now, and I think they talked about him yesterday. Quickly, it tied back to the mentality around the way we think and what we think about how we achieve our success. And they were talking about the fact that he must be at a point where, he's going, okay, yeah, I'm a billionaire. I got all this money, but he's still trying to do more.
Yeah.
Right. And now his risk factor is going to be significantly different because he's got the ability to take these risks and do these things. But it's the mentality, not the fact that he has the money. Right. And there's the difference in the way people need to think of, again, the mentality around what am I going to do to get out there and take the risk and
because it's not about the money, right?
I
think if you're helping enough people and doing what you're passionate about, the money's going to show up. Listen,
right.
Not a lot of people know this. I'm actually getting certified right now to be a personal trainer.
Oh, cool.
Do I think I'm going to make more money doing personal training than I make in real estate? Who knows? Maybe, but that's not my intent. I love fitness. I've started working out at 16. I never stopped. I did CrossFit for years. I did the CrossFit games. I do triathlons. You know what I mean? I love that. And
enjoy that.
So now I'm going through that certification because I want to help people in that area as well. And then who knows where it goes, right? But that's something I'm passionate about. I talked about it at the NAR event. Is my event was around finding your superpower. Yep. Superpower is what do you love to do and what are you good at the same time? Like, how do you take the thing that you love to do and the thing that you're good at and how to use that to generate business? Because then people are organically going to want to do business with you, right? Instead of, just trying to get somebody to manipulate somebody to do business with you, help them become the best part of their week. Like for me, triathlons, I'm putting together local triathlons. We're going to do a 5K this spring. So the point is get people together, do something fun, give to a charity. People are going to show up. They're going to know I'm in real estate. I don't have to promote the fact that I'm in real estate.
Right.
And if, you're doing something good for the community, you're helping people with their health. And if they need real estate, then they're going to talk to me about it. And to me, that's the superpower.
You're living it and breathing it. It's funny. I was just about to ask you any final words of inspiration that you want to share with our listeners. And feel free to expand on anything there. I think part of that, finding your superpower, I like that. But I would say, do you have any final words of inspiration there that you might want to share?
Yeah, I'm actually going to re-answer that question you asked me earlier about what would I say to newer agents. And I would say, first, find your superpower, right? So what is it that you love doing? My wife teaches yoga, tremendous personality, loves people, loves yoga. For her, she'd do yoga sessions. A lot of people would show up for yoga. And then at the end, they'd talk to her about real estate. And she was getting business from that. She's doing what she loves and it's bringing her business. So for everybody listening, figure out what it is that you love doing and figure out how you can, same with me, like I love triathlons. So I'm setting up local triathlons. It's ultimately, if it leads to business, great. If it doesn't, who cares? I still love doing triathlons, but I'm doing what I love. And I think if people can figure out what it is they love doing and figure out how they can use that to grow their business, it's going to make things a lot more fulfilling for them.
I love it, brother. I love it. Dave, where can people go and connect with you? Where can they find you?
Thanks, bro. I would say you can, if you want to email me, that's fine. David I. Hill at David I. Hill at David at davidihill.com. Find me on Facebook. It's super easy. My Facebook group is called Path to Mastery.
Cool.
Join our Facebook group. Also, you can find me on Facebook, David Hill. And please listen to my podcast, man. My podcast I love, and it's called Path to Mastery. So yeah, it's on iTunes, wherever else you find your podcasts. And yeah, man, just appreciate you having me today. It's been fun. Oh
man, I appreciate the time. I really do. And I would second all that and say to people, I met Dave, and I said this off the top. We had met about a month ago now. Got to talking one day, and then all of a sudden we're doing dinner and we're getting into deeper conversations, and here we are today, and I feel like we could keep talking and talking. So everybody listening and watching, thank you, and make sure that you get out there, check out Dave, the Path to Mastery, the Facebook group, listen to his podcast. Definitely lots of insight, man. And once again, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. Thanks for doing this.
You're either listening to this on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or Spotify, maybe iHeartRadio, or maybe you went to industrysyndicate.com, maybe you downloaded our free Industry Syndicate podcast app, or maybe you went to my website, MindShare101.com. Wherever you like to consume your content, please rate, review, and subscribe. And if you haven't yet, Connect with me on Facebook at MindShare 101 and on Instagram at David Greenspan 101. This has been another episode of the MindShare Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for listening.